All right, 6:01. Calling this meeting to order. Anybody that would like to stand and say the pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion to accept the agenda?
I move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on to approval of minutes. I have a motion to approve the
I
minutes.
move to approve the minutes.
A second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Correspondence. We saw the planning and zoning capital plan approval. I don't know, do we need to do anything with that, or we're just acknowledging that they've set their approval? Okay. All right, let's get to the reports. I'm aiming to make this a quick meeting. All right, Debbie?
Oh, I put copies of my report in. This is just a kind of a catch up on the table. I did not send them out. There's a red, white, blue one, and then the other one is just frequently asked questions. How many bills do you send? What are they? So that's where we are. And this is comparing last year where we were and this year where we are.
So we're basically right on.
Basically, we're all doing the same old stuff.
Okay.
As I have repeated more than once, when I start looking at back taxes, I look at the people who are more than 1 year behind.
Mhm.
There are 5 people on that list this year, so I'm just zeroing in on those 5 people and their 6 properties. The dollar amount is not great, but they're too far behind in my book. So that process has started.
And you'll continue what you normally have done in the past with.
Oh, there's a
Yeah.
whole,
Yeah.
they hear from me more than they
Yes, I know.
want to.
Yes.
That's my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. All right, Board of Ed? Anybody from Board of Ed? All right,
2 months in a row.
Board of Selectmen. Marty coming down from,
Maybe just put him.
we'll add him if he comes back down.
Rufus is, no?
He's not on the Board of Selectmen.
That's right. I forgot.
Typical report.
Great, thanks.
Activity on the front page and building inspector info on the back page. Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The highlights are that according to what is budgeted, we have 95.7% of the property taxes collected the date of the budgeted amount. We've exceeded the amount of interest that we have budgeted. We budgeted, well, we've collected 120. I believe we've budgeted 80,000 for interest. And it's only halfway through the year, so that's gonna exceed quite nicely.
Mhm.
Transfer station fees are down just a little bit, but I think that might have to do with the recycling and the food recycling and the change in the permits.
Hi.
And then we received 120% of the budgeted amount of the KCS tuition. So that's exceeded. Underneath that in red are 2 items. And the numbers or the slashes on the left represent how many times I've reported this to you. So now the paramedic overline on the budget is the 3rd time it's being reported, and it's probably just gonna stay on my report from now until the end of the year so nobody forgets.
Okay.
And EMS staffing, the projection for January is the same as the projection for December, that approximately $80,500 in additional appropriation will be needed for that line.
Okay.
No,
Barbara, just a question about the tuition number. What happens, to that surplus?
oh, it just goes in the general fund.
So, okay.
All of it just goes in the general
Okay,
fund.
thanks.
But when they first started having paid students come to the school, we weren't budgeting at all. And
Right.
then we saw what the revenue stream was. It's like, we really should be budgeting this. It's not correct to not budget it. So they give me their best estimate when they can of how many students it's gonna be, and what the fees will be.
Sure.
There's always maybe a few more that sign on.
Sure. Okay.
At this time, there are no departments that are over budget. Everything looks to be where it should be for this time of year. Although I do want to point out that because $700,000 of the undesignated general fund was used to balance the budget last year, the chances of not using any of that are very slim. Very slim. It's just, it's.
Okay.
The backside is the building inspector report that I've been given each month. And just of note, when you compare the activity and the building permit values that have been issued this year to date versus where they were last year to date, they're actually down by about 60 permits, 50 permits, something like that. The value's down about $31 million.
And is that because we had such a
I mean,
robust, we had a robust year in the last
well,
year?
I don't know without looking at what the building permits issued,
Right.
or it could be that the private schools were doing construction or that some of the larger entities in town were doing big renovations. I really don't know. I can't speak to that. The other document that I've presented or attached to my report is from Webster Bank. At the selectmen's board level, there was a request made for exploration into issuing some sort of debit card or credit card or prepaid card to department heads so that individual employees don't have to expend their own money and then submit for reimbursement.
Right.
So I did talk to our banker, and there are 3 or 4 different products that were offered, and this looked like the best one. It won't cost the town anything. Individual cards will be issued to department heads. There is the ability to restrict the usage through predefined spending categories and different mechanisms. So I'm exploring this. One of the bigger things that has to happen here is that a policy needs to be written. A card's easy to hand out, but how people use it is going to be determined by the policy. So I've been researching policies, and I have a couple of templates that I'm going to utilize to pull information from and add a little of what's unique to our situation too, and hopefully come up with a policy that's acceptable.
So basically, you think it's probably each department head, or you would have several available for them to use from you or something?
No, the cards will be issued in individual names,
Okay.
and people will be signing off saying that they are responsible for that card,
Gotcha.
et cetera. So at this point, my vision is that the only ones that will be issued will be for departments that really need it. There's no, this is not intended to supplant the actual regular process for getting bills approved and that type of activity. That would be a bad thing.
Right.
But it's to hopefully alleviate employee reimbursements so that people don't have to pay out of pocket for it when they sign up for classes or dues and fee or whatever they're doing. So anyway,
Is that a huge issue?
it was huge enough for the selectmen to bring it up.
Well, yeah, it's a fairness issue,
So
right?
I don't know, I guess that's debatable.
Yeah, but on the other hand, we are assuming people have liquidity, right? And either we have to explore that, which isn't fair either, because that's people's private situation. So it is kind of a helpful tool, right? Yeah.
To put a little bit of a parameter on it. The
Right.
reimbursements have never been hundreds of thousands of
Right.
dollars. They're not even thousands of dollars.
Okay.
They're not even hundreds of dollars. So the normal reimbursement is usually $95 or $50 or something along that line.
So it's something, if you know, something the old fashioned petty cash box probably would have
Yeah, we tried having a petty cat, it doesn't work. People forget to bring receipts, next thing you know, there's no money left in the cash,
Gotcha,
and there's no receipts, so that really doesn't work.
okay.
But we did try that a couple of years ago.
Okay.
In addition to that, I just need to make a little correction. At the Board of Selectmen meeting, I reported that, there was a question about the audit and why we're on extension. And the answer that I provided was that because when our auditor resigned, when she did in the middle of the fiscal year, and we had to scramble to get an auditor, the current auditor that we have took us on. So we were sort of on the last tail end of his pile of projects. And we were very grateful to get him a local man, local auditor to take us on. So that's still true, but I thought, and I reported at the time, that this was our last year of the audit engagement with him, and that's not true. We actually have one more year. So fiscal year 24 will be
Gotcha.
and the audit engagement, and then we'll put out an RFP.
But you're on a normal schedule, at least for this year.
No, we're behind.
Okay.
And a little bit, in the beginning it was him, then it was me, then it was him, now it's me again. I've been working on the state and federal single audit schedules, which is where I have to create schedules to report all the expenditures that are being funded with federal dollars and state dollars. And between the ARPA money and the different road grants that we have, it's been a challenge for me to get these two schedules done, because the schedules ask you to report on what you spent, not what you received. But I still have to reconcile it to this other report that the state provides of what they've given us so far this year. So because the ARPA money was given to us 2 years ago, we didn't spend any of it at all into this past year. There's been a lot of work to reconcile those reports. So now it's my fault that we're late on the audit again.
Okay.
So that's where we are. I just learned this week that one of the grants that we applied for, or I helped apply for with Park and Rec for the splash pad has been granted, and the money is literally in our bank account right now.
For the whole thing, or?
$100,000.
Oh,
That's not gonna pay for the whole splash
Sure.
pad, no.
but that
was
certainly
a big
commits
piece of
us,
it.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one.
And then in addition to me looking into credit cards for different departments to alleviate the issue of them having to expend their own funds, banking is taking a real turn in general, and virtual currency is really happening everywhere. And so different departments are now accepting more payments via credit cards and e-checks. So at this point, I have 3 departments that I receive funding for from 3 different places that we have to reconcile at the end of each month. So that's adding a little bit of,
So there's no central merchant account for the town.
no, because what's happening is each department chooses a vendor based on the software that is
Right.
simpatico to what they do. So for Park and Rec, it was called My Rec, and then you can pick different merchant providers through My Rec, and they recommend these ones. And then for land use, it's
Sure.
got whatever that is, General Gov or whatever, and they have like 2 merchants, so they pick the one that most people use. So I'm getting revenue from 3 different credit card merchants, which actually makes it a little easier because I know this one belongs to that department and this one belongs to that department. But because of the timing, as you know, credit cards, you may buy something on Saturday, but it doesn't hit your credit card account until Monday, and the merchant doesn't get the money until Wednesday. So the fact that I have to close out every month and reconcile every month leaves now, we've got this hanging issue where we have a 7 or 8 day lag that is pulling things back. So it's just more task work. Going on for that. And I think that's all I have.
So anything else about the audit?
No, he's just waiting on me at this point for that schedule for the federal and state. And I actually worked on it all day Monday, even though it was a day off. And I think I have it ready, so I just have to upload it to him and get it to him. It's actually two different schedules. Because there's a federal schedule for federal money and there's a state schedule for state money. And we actually have one road grant that's 80% federal, 10% state, and 10%
Right.
us. So, and the TAP grant is the same way. Which is, so we have actually two grants that do that. They hit both schedules.
All right,
Rufus?
annual report update?
Rufus?
Oh,
Since Lynn's here, do you want to ask about the Board of Selectmen, by the way?
We skipped over because there was no board.
yeah.
Marty didn't tell me.
Okay, no, it's fine.
So,
We could make sure that you know, I mean, that we've offered.
I mean, I can tell you we're in the middle of our budget.
Yeah,
there you go.
But
Okay.
I'm sure that's a lot of work. All right, annual report update.
No update, it's still the same, I'm, gotta wait till
She's
the
waiting on
audit.
the auditor.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so once the audit's done, and I get the information from Barbara, then I can send out the final copy, but
Okay.
hasn't changed since the
Right.
one you guys got.
Okay.
All right, and then capital plan review and discussion, I don't know. So planning and zoning's now approved it. What's the next step? We sent it to P and Z.
Right, so now it would technically become part of the budget,
Yeah.
but
So,
you don't have the full budget yet.
okay,
The selectmen haven't finished their work, the Board of Ed haven't finished their work, but to the point of the capital plan, two things. One is there's a state program for taking down the dead ash trees that the bugs killed.
Right.
They're emerald ash borers, I think they were. And the requirement is they'll reimburse you, but it has to be through LoSiP and it has to be in your capital plan. Now, we typically didn't have tree removal in our,
That's capital expenditure, really? What?
I'm just telling you the way it is. So
Never thought of a tree at the capital, I'd say.
we may have to add some tree removal expense to the capital plan and offset it in the budget on the revenue side. It'll be a wash, but it'll still
Sure.
increase the capital plan, so that may end up going back. I don't know if they have to review it again because of that. And also, there is money currently in the capital plan that's been there for a couple of years. There are a couple of improvements here at the town hall, the generator and,
Roads,
was it roads?
roads.
No, you see generator and something else, because Joyce, in her discussion with Rick, would like to tap into the LoSiP money to get some of that funding to cover the overage that they couldn't afford with what they had already been funded with. But in order to do that, it needs to be added to the capital plan.
Gotcha.
So there may be another $50,000 added for that piece as well, which will be offset with a revenue, but just.
Well, and we did have this, I guess, the
Close
question.
that point yet.
And then the other question is, at the annual meeting, I know it was raised, whether, are we gonna have a mechanism at some point as a Board of Finance? I think we kind of were asked to take a look at some of the maturing items in the capital budget, which have not been expended. Where in the process do you think we ought to do that?
That's the next item, isn't it?
Well, that's a big question, yeah.
The agenda. But before that, how do we know, I mean, is there a max on the ash tree removal? Ring? I mean, are the first selectmen doing the first selectmen doing a survey of how many ash trees there ought to come down? How does that work?
We have a tree warden. And the tree warden goes, I'm not kidding.
Of course we do, right?
He goes around and is mad. And does his report and it's in conjunction with the highway department. So I'm not sure where they are in that process, but I'll find out when they want to get it funded.
Thank you.
And the state was a little bit vague on how much money they would actually give us for tree removal.
Right.
So they have already allocated, and I don't remember the exact amount because it was large, maybe 13 million, but that's for all the towns in the state. So we're not really sure what formula they're going to use to allocate to individual towns. We don't know.
And does our crew are they capable of doing that, or do we put it out to bid to the local tree folks?
You would have to have a certified tree person. Who's our tree warden? Bruce Bennett, right? Yes, makes sense.
He has been working on an inventory.
Interesting.
Yeah, so.
And I would think on this one, it's probably square mileage is the formula, or something the state comes up with, like we
Yeah.
probably get as much as Hartford does, just because we're, you know,
Oh, I
how many
doubt it. He
trees.
thinks you have more trees than her.
Right, you know, so.
Makes sense. Yeah, so I don't know how they're gonna allocate
Right.
it, but anyway, I think all the towns are gonna tap into that and get whatever they get
Sure.
and see the process.
Mhm.
We're in that process.
Okay.
All right, on new business. Review of the current status of funded capital projects, discussion and possible action. So the document that's on the website, the pink are the ones that are.
I'd have to look at it. I didn't look at your agenda to even realize that you would have this.
I couldn't find it
but-
on this.
And I haven't updated that, but there are a couple. But I do know in just recent discussions that some of the departments are rethinking some of those allocations for funding that hasn't been used at this point.
Mhm.
Like,
So are we looking, do you think, the best way to approach this is department? Go ahead.
No, I was thinking that we should require the departments to come up with a narrative about
I
where the
I
project
think that's
is.
the
and-
best
Right,
idea. I don't feel comfortable talking about discussions I've had with different departments.
Right.
Because I don't know where they are in that process, or if they've changed their mind since I've talked to them. I think that would be best.
So then just in terms of what we have to
I think
issue a
we could-
request, make a request.
I think we could issue, do we even need to take a vote on this? Like ask the Board of Selectmen to bring to our next meeting a report from department heads on.
Well, we got one here. What do you think? Yeah. So
Do
we
need
want to get
make
this
it an
in.
official request, like, do we, I don't know about the Robert's rules around asking for the department heads to come up with a narrative around.
Yeah, I'm not sure there are Robert's rules.
So I think, yeah, I think we can probably make a request to the Board of Selectmen though, to produce for us, to, you know, a summary of the department heads'
Yeah.
analysis of their capital, their current capital budgets, and with a specific focus on the older entries in those budgets to see whether or not they ought to be modified.
Yes.
Right? I think we just said it. That's what.
So you guys are looking for a proposal from each of the.
Well, I think,
Yeah, just like, and like a narrative, where are they with this project that's been on the books since
Right.
2015 or 2017?
I would be more forceful and ask them to tell us why we shouldn't just take that amount and put it back into the general fund.
That's one way to get it.
Right. I know it's, in some cases, they don't have enough money to do the project. Like Barbara was talking about with the town hall. They don't have enough money to do it because when they,
Right.
you know,
But we all know
5,
that.
6 years ago, they thought they would have enough
But we
money.
gotta know that
But
too,
that's why.
right? Sure.
Yeah.
Explain.
Yeah, I think the first step would be the narrative. And then,
I mean, much in the way we go to the departments for their input on the new capital budget. So at some point, we need them to go to the, or, you know, the earliest years, you know, and to tell us where they are on those and whether or not there's light to them, or frankly, it ought to be going back to us, to go to the general fund. Yeah. Okay.
okay.
So we've done that, and who's gonna convey that? Can we look to you to convey that to, Marty and Glenn? Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think this was a big issue at the town meeting.
Right.
I would think that the people of the town would want us to be proceeding with action on anything that's really old and cold. And, and I would hope that the agenda for the next meeting, especially because I'm going to be Zooming again, would
That's-
be accompanied by whatever narratives we receive and also by a copy, which I think I have the right document, but.
But it says approved capital.
Correct, of the 5-year capital plan,
As
right?
requested by the stakeholder and recommended by the board of selectmen.
So Tegan, what were you saying?
So we,
Well, remember, we have the guidelines.
Right,
And-
that's right.
And the guidelines say that approved capital projects may be altered in scope only as requested by the stakeholder and recommended by the Board of Selectmen, but may not be transferred, altered, or exchanged for any other type of project under the aegis of stakeholder without taxpayer approval.
Right.
So it looks to me like it has to
It has to go back.
start with the stakeholder who is the board.
Right.
And then go to the Board of Selectmen and then come to us.
Okay. Okay.
All right, start the process.
But, and you have a confused look.
I would feel better if, I know Nancy's not here, but if your board was making sure to make that request in writing to Marty.
yes,
So I don't
Right.
misinterpret.
That's
yeah, no, we will.
But I get, but Tegan's got the process, that's right, so
Yeah.
basically, so really the only thing that those departments can do is if they identify things that they think aren't gonna happen for whatever reasons in.
Nancy and I will send
Yeah.
an official request
Okay.
to Marty via email.
Okay. So we have therefore acted on what, right, what was said at the time. So, Frank, the request made by, you, okay.
Oh, pitter patter of little feet.
Oh, there's Marty. We can make the request.
Request in person.
I don't know, if you take any longer, we're gonna keep giving you work, we're gonna.
So Marty, we were just talking about the funded capital projects
Right.
that have unexpended funds for whatever reasons. So we are officially requesting you as Board of Selectmen to talk to the stakeholders, because we need to know what the status is. Is there a narrative around why these funds haven't been expended or not? And then any changes have to come from the stakeholder to Board of Selectmen, back to Board of Finance. And Nancy and I will send you an email so that there's a paper.
Sorry if I'm really late, I thought it was 6:30, I'm sorry. Buried in paperwork upstairs.
We can go back to Board of Selectmen report.
The only thing I have really is that we continue our work through the operating budget for different departments and organizations. Probably about halfway there or so. There's a few of the ones that we deliver grants to that do want to come and talk to us, so we're trying to work out schedules that are mutually inclusive for them. The only question I really have for you guys is, when is your drop dead date you need us to submit that budget to you? I want to make sure we don't, prolong any of this and let people take us.
Right. I don't have it, but,
I think I can write it.
yeah.
I saw the schedule, but it kind of was amorphous a little bit, I found in the dates. They didn't really match up. The one-
We have two,
March 20th.
March 20th.
and what's supposed to happen on March 13th?
13th, 17th, yeah, 13th, you're right.
We have meetings scheduled for the 13th and 20th, so I assume one is for the Board of Ed and one is for the Selectmen.
Yeah, 13th is Board of Ed,
Mhm.
and Board of Selectmen is what?
It's the
17th?
17th.
17th. Yep,
Mhm.
March 17th.
It's funny.
Yeah,
Right.
well, that's when you submit it to us for the March 20th meeting.
Yeah.
So March 17th.
Okay, all right. Because I'm out of town that day. I'm actually on vacation. But you need it to start that week, so you have it on board for Wednesday.
Yeah, we've got to have it early enough both to post it for the town,
Right.
and
For you.
that's right.
It'll be in there's a shared folder.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, just want to make sure that they're still, that's good. Yeah, the only other thing, as far as capital plan now, do you have a specific time frame? Is it like 2 years unfunded or unexpended?
There's a There was a series of ones that were like over.
Yeah, I mean, the
over
bigger
4 or
issue
5
is the
years.
ones that jump off the page that have been there longer than frankly,
Yeah.
probably materially, frankly, longer than was planned. And I think the point being that the issue raised at the town meeting was simply, we approved these things
Right.
and either you guys put up or shut up on them. And if they've gotten frankly out of the times, that 5-year time window, then should it, really the question was, should they just go back into the general fund and you have a redo, basically,
Right.
on that need. So we need enough data from the departments to at least, determine where that's an issue or not.
But your board would only make a recommendation to the taxpayers, right?
That's right.
Taxpayers,
Yeah.
right.
You got it.
So, but I can go rule of thumb is anything outside. of
Yeah,
that.
there's a clear, like on the document on the website, there's like a column with pink sort of outstanding. And it's mostly like 2017, 2015.
There's some that are inside that. I just want to make sure that if you want everything, I'll do everything. And we'll send it for everybody.
Yeah, I think just like those big,
Right. Well, and part two is, I think, and the notion to ask the department heads, because part of this has to be able to represent to the voters that they're on top of this issue in each department. Since they're the ones who've been asking for it and the voters have approved it, then we want to be able to represent that they've,
Okay, those absolutely.
all right.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Marty, is that your,
Yeah, that's it.
great. Just a little bit of work. Comments from public and invited guests? Anyone on Zoom?
No.
Anyone here?
Okay.
All right.
You want to comment?
I'm Therese Duncan. I'm one of the Register of Voters in Kent, and I am just here if you had any questions about early voting. Not that I can answer any. Because the state hasn't really given us all of the guidelines, and they have not provided the training that we will be receiving before early voting. So I don't have a whole lot, other than to say that our budget for personnel will probably double what it is presently.
And is that is this anticipated number in the budget process, and will it be in the budget as presented to us to review in March? And the question is how it's funded will be.
Yeah, we've asked them to come before us twice and they've had to back off each time. Actually, third time, we asked them to come tomorrow, they can't make tomorrow. So
Gotcha.
as soon as we can get them in and get the full explanation, maybe I'll give you the narratives for why. Yeah, we know the increase because we're 14 days for next year. This year it's funded through a $10,500 grant that was given to the town. I think you guys were familiar with that.
Right.
For the primaries. So, but we're using this kind of as a test run to see how the cost goes until, but we're working with Register of Voters to get the actual information for next year's budget. So, yeah, and that's, by the time I get to you guys, hopefully, very soon, we had the training because it only comes right like 2 weeks after that, right?
I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty hearing you.
Yeah, the training you need for this, right? So you can better understand it.
Right.
Will hopefully come before the actual primary occurs, right?
Well, we do expect it to, but one never knows. I think the state is doing as great a job as they can. They have been handed down from the legislature what they need to do, and they're trying to sort it out as well.
Is a $10,500 grant for each town?
Yes.
That's what it was last time. And this year,
It's the same one for the.
so it is gonna be, so it will be the same number from the state.
It will not.
Right, that's my
It will
question.
not. As a matter of fact, right now, the legislature has not And the executive, our governor, has not requested additional funds. I asked him that at a meeting of the Council of Small Towns directly, are you planning to help us with that? And I got a, hey, we're with you kind of a thing. It kind of confused me, and we've actually, we followed up on it. Someone from the Waterbury American Republican, Republican American asked them that, and they said, we don't know. And when I looked at the governor's material they sent to the legislature for funding things like early childhood and ECS and so on, nothing was in there for the actual cost reimbursement or sharing even for any of the cost of the 14-day early voting for the general election. So it's going to come back on us. So that's what we're going to be doing is actually sitting down, working out the numbers with the registered voters and actually putting that in the budget. So you will see the actual numbers we believe will be the cost for the early voting in October, November. Yes, yeah, 14.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments? I have a motion
I'd move
adjourn.
to adjourn.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, my apologies for being late up there.
You know.